Hi, I had this question on Twitter about how to create a product roadmap for a platform team. And I see this question come up quite often in organizations where they're trying to move to the sort of modern self-service platform approach that's focused on the internal customers of the organization. And so the answer here um, for me is, first of all, we need to have a discovery process between the platform and the streamline teams, right? The platform should evolve as an internal product, so it needs to be catering for the needs of those streamline teams, in the same way that we would expect, for um, product teams working on end customer products and services to go through the discovery process of understanding what are the needs of their customers, how do we um, answer those needs. And so the same sort of process should be happening inside the organization for the platform team. Um, and that means the what the platform team should build and should provide should not be decided unidirectionally, let's say, by the center of excellence or by the CTO even, or anyone else. It should be always in conjunction with the streamline teams that are the ones that are going to be the consumers of the platform. Um, and some of those needs from the streamline teams might be, we just need a better way, a simpler way to use some of these services, right? It's not always about new functionality. And in order to achieve this sort of good discovery and delivery process for the platform teams, you need trust. Trust is essential for fast flow. And so, if the platform team is not trusted, sorry, to decide what would be beneficial to build or to provide to the organization based on the streamline team's needs, um, then naturally what happen is the platform team will not have the necessary motivation and even kind of interest in transparency that you would expect from a platform team, right? So there's going to be this sort of game where one side is trying to ask more and more things from the platform team is trying to kind of build some room to focus on the things that they think they should be working on while responding to those um, kind of requests that are coming from outside. Um, and so that's not a good approach when we're just asking platform team to do this and do more and more, and that will just tend to end up in a big roadmap or a very long backlog of things to do, which have not been exactly validated with the streamline teams, with the consumers of the platform. Um, on the other hand, that said, the platform teams also need to demonstrate that they have this customer-focused approach, right? If we, you know, allow the platform teams to decide what they should build, but then they don't demonstrate that we're actually looking after what our internal customers need, we're talking to them, we're understanding their needs, their frustrations, um, then we're still going to be in sort of a probably not building the right things or building too much. Um, and so we need to avoid this sort of kind of more too tech focused approach where the platform team has these great ideas of what we should build, but they're not actually um, directly validated with streamline teams needs, and there's no correlation necessarily there. Um, Platform teams need to avoid ending up with very packed roadmaps worth a month of effort or even several quarters of effort, because that means they're not going to have the necessary flexibility to accommodate new needs, new requirements that are coming from the streamline teams or enabling teams, for example. So whenever you hear sort of replies like, well, we can't even discuss any new requirements until 3 months from now or in 2 quarters from now, that's probably you should be stopping for a moment and think about what does this mean. It means we have a likely a very bloated roadmap with too many things, and we're not actually agile and flexible enough to adapt to what are the new needs that are coming, and keeping that open mind to, okay, we have to prioritize, we have to understand what has changed, and if the priorities need to change for the platform team as well. And so my recommendation is, first of all, for the platform team to have a clear mission that's aligned with the kind of the stream of work. So for example, when we say, well, our mission is to provide shared services, that's very broad. It means it can be anything. And so that doesn't help to focus our efforts on the right things. It will lead to long roadmaps again, and lack of flexibility to adapt to new requirements. So the mission, kind of the overall purpose of the platform team, should be aligned to something a bit more specific. Something like, for example, um, we're working on the observability services. That might be a good balance, right? It has a clear scope. It doesn't mean that we are setting up a lot of expectations up front. We know it's a domain where we likely want to have some self-service capabilities for our teams, to be able to do their work, their diagnosing work, their um, performance type of work, so that they have that sort of information. Um, so it's useful to have, a mission statement that is aligned to something that is more or less concrete, without setting us up to a very kind of rigid roadmap. And then in terms of the actual development of the platform over time, and development of the platform services, it might be okay, and I think it's okay to have epics or kind of high level goals. Um, but then on the day-to-day work, the what I would expect to see, um, for the platform to actually evolve according to the needs of the Streamline teams, is that we're working much more based on things like user stories, or some kind of small feature requests that are coming from a Streamline teams, that we can break down into user stories, and we can also then have acceptance tests, right, for those user stories, thinking about, what happens in this failure scenarios, what happens in happy scenarios, so this sort of thing. So that's also coming from the idea that the platform team should adopt this sort of modern um, software development practices like TDD, BDD, um, this sort of things. So we would expect them to be working in this agile way, responding quickly to the needs of Streamline teams, prototyping, um, things like that. All this sort of quick iteration approach. And so we definitely need the platform teams to be aware of how responsive are we to new needs from the stream teams, right? Um, at least we should be able, as a platform team, to have those conversations, right? Doesn't mean that we'll be able to reply and implement changes, in the next week, but at least we should be open and have effort available to keep that communication going with the Streamline teams, understand what's new, what are the things that they need, or with the enabling teams that have a kind of a broad view of what might be some useful services in the platform or functionality. Um, so as kind of a rule of thumb, if you like, it should not take weeks or months to even listen to what are the new needs, right? If you're in that sort of situation, then something needs definitely to be done, in terms of the platform team allocating some effort, or changing the way they deal with incoming work, so that we can listen more frequently on an ongoing basis to the needs of stream teams. um, and it should not take months or even quarters before we can say, well, we'll be able to implement um, this request from the Streamline teams again. If it's something that we've identified, yes, this is a need that the platform should address, then if we say, well, we're only going to work on that in 6 months' time, then something is off there, right? If it is kind of a request that has a certain priority that we've identified for the platform, then we need to have more flexibility to build that in. Um, and so coming back to the idea of trust, then if the platform team wants to be trusted to decide on the right things to do, they also need to show trust by listening and keeping those communication lines with the Streamline teams open. And sometimes they might even need to reach out to the Streamline teams and actually get their input and validate the things they're working on, right? So definitely not taking a kind of isolationist approach where the platform team is working for weeks or months but by themselves without feedback, without reaching out to the Streamline teams. And so we need this sort of dynamics to be in place if we want effective, powerful platforms that really accelerate our Streamline teams. So that's my long answer to that question.